All right, let's test these levels.
So is that action sound? Is that your?
Well, I sync up the sound here with the video there, and that makes an easy comparison point.
Makes a nice big spike on there.
Yeah. All right, let's test these levels. What'd you have for breakfast, Paige?
I don't know, but yours is still on your face.
Is it really?
There you go.
Man, it sure was. Look at that.
Nice.
All right, Don, what'd you have for breakfast?
I had absolutely nothing for breakfast.
Get a little closer. About
A little closer.
Two
Right about
finger
here?
distance. Yeah, that's good.
How's that? That pretty good there?
Do you have any coffee yet?
No, I don't drink coffee.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, you're uninvited to coffee with the coaches.
No, I didn't bring a drink. I'm sorry. I thought about bringing my protein drink,
There's
but
some
I didn't.
water over there. Yeah.
Just in case you get a tickle in your throat.
Oh, thank you.
It's always nice to have one of these.
Awesome.
Just in case.
I'm already giggling about my dad joke. I had to check your phone over there to see if it was already recording because I was over here like, and I was like, oh, that phone's sitting there staring at me.
I was saying, is there like an order or rotation for dad jokes? Because now I want to hear yours.
Yeah. All right, let's kick this thing off. Coffee with the Coaches, episode 19, coming to you from the Mega Desk. At Boot
It
Hill
is a very large
CrossFit.
desk. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So the legend of the Mega Desk. We had two different ones on opposite sides of the room.
You can't tell this story every time, Michael.
Tell it.
People
we've
are
got-
gonna get
please,
people are
just-
gonna get tired of hearing it.
Yes,
Look,
I
I
don't
don't-
know, so please tell.
He doesn't understand the legend of the Mega Desk yet. We got to tell him.
Okay.
It's just two of the same. We pushed them together. Saying, now, Paige, you killed the whole romance of the Mega Desk.
It needs a little
We're
bit of
gonna
backstory.
lose
It's like-
listeners.
It's like we broke 3 arms bringing it up the stairs. You know, so.
No, it's not that exciting.
That actually would be good. We need to start telling a bigger story
Turn
every
it
time
into a Michael
Need some
story.
backstory. Yeah.
about how the Mega Desk came to be. Well, all right. My name's Michael. We've got Paige,
Hola.
as always. And our special guest for the day is
The Don.
Dr. Don Davis. Welcome
Howdy.
to the Mega Desk, Dr. Donnie.
I am super excited to see the big mega desk. It's what I've been hearing about. So now that I know some of the backstory,
I hope you're not disappointed
No,
now that you
I'm
see it in person.
super excited.
So, Dr. Don Davis is a chiropractor, and he is starting to practice up in Jackson, right?
Yeah, I've been in practice. Not just starting. I've been now almost a year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yep.
So there's the kind of the basic credentials, but before we dive any deeper, you know how we got to start this thing. We got to start it with a dad joke. And I've got a double header today. I've actually got 2 of them. Does anybody want to go
Well,
before
I've got
I hit
like
you with a
50
double?
right here if we're gonna do
yeah,
that.
No, there's
Paige
2.
has been giggling. I want to hear Paige's
I
first.
can't hold
Alright.
it in anymore.
You're up, Paige.
Okay. 2 birds are sitting on a perch, and one says, "Do you smell fish?"
Ah, come on.
Do you get it? Do you get it? Donnie doesn't
Yes.
get it.
It's
I get
a
it.
perch.
I get it.
A perch.
It was a slow burner. But yes,
Slow
I got it.
burn. Like I had to read it 3 times. I was like, "What?"
These are the best ones. These are the
Then I
ones I
got
really
it.
like.
Absolutely.
Paige and I disagree a little bit about the dad jokes for the most part because she wants them to be like
Yeah,
hitting
like
hard,
Really
like good
funny.
jokes. and
drop
I'm like,
the hammer.
nah.
Yeah. No, it's
to
a
me,
slow burner.
Then it's
It's
just
the-
a true joke.
The face palm, forehead slapper.
Yeah.
You know, that's what a
That's
dad
a
joke
pure
is truly
dad
about.
joke. Yeah.
All right, so I hope yours is good, Donnie, so you can bring us home. I'm gonna hit the next one.
Okay, go for it.
So, how do mermaids give birth? A C-section.
I don't want to laugh at that.
It's okay, you can. And then the other one is, what do you call a sad strawberry?
I don't know what.
A blueberry.
No, no.
All right, nice.
All right, you're up, Doc.
So I brought a trifecta today. So, why does Snoop Dogg carry an umbrella?
I don't know.
For drizzle.
Okay. I like it.
so-
That one came straight off of a Laffy Taffy sticker, right?
Yeah.
All right, so this one I got yesterday, and my 11-year-old loved it. My wife just face palmed it. So,
It's going to be good. What
what kind of flower do you give an orphan?
kind of flower do you give an orphan? I don't know.
Self-raising.
Oh no!
Damn! That one hits hard. I like it.
That one was a little cold.
Oh no!
And
That's good.
Yeah,
I'm with it.
We'll end with the trifecta with a classic.
All right.
Why do scuba divers fall off boats backwards?
I don't know.
If they fell forward, they'd just be in the boat.
Oh no!
Yeah. All right.
That's a true groaner.
Standing ovation for
Good
that.
job.
Thank you very much.
Those are very dad-like.
I've had some dad experience. So.
Got some experience as a dad. So you were
Oh,
just telling
boy.
me that your oldest is now 19 years old.
Holy
I'm
crap.
super proud of the kid. He is
You know what that
attending
means.
Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach, living his best life on the beach about every other day. So he's at the aerospace engineering school there in Embry-Riddle.
Really?
Yep.
Cool.
Wow,
So he
that's
wants to be
awesome.
a aerospace engineer. So
Sweet.
super proud of the kid.
That's incredible. And then your youngest is now.
He's 11. He's a
Good
middle
Lord,
schooler.
I remember him when he was like 4 inches tall.
Oh yeah. He wanted to come to class all the time and run around with everybody. And
Aw.
he had to do his own little workout and his own little wad on the side over there. So yeah.
So to give some backstory, I know you and your wife Mandy, you guys actually started CrossFit with us when we first opened. I mean, it had only
Yeah.
been a little bit, and the kids. I remember the kids being small. You guys coming in and working out together, and yeah, it was. And then I guess to jump forward a little bit, you guys actually moved to St. Louis to get yourself into chiropractic school,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I'll just let you pick up from there. How's
Yeah.
it been? I really haven't seen or talked to you much
And
since
so
you guys moved.
Before we even go there, I tell you, this community of Boot Hill is probably the best one we ever had. We went to a couple of other gyms up there.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, so nothing like
Hey.
here, and that's has been the benchmark of every gym we've gone to, and we've never been able to replicate
Really?
the community
man.
here.
That's awesome.
So I'm-
Thanks. I'm glad to hear
yeah,
that.
so-
I love but hate to hear that.
Well, I mean, granted, the other gyms were okay, but we just
cool,
never had
but you ain't that cool.
Yeah, we just didn't ever have that feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had my midlife crisis, and I decided, you know what, I need to go back to school and drop $250,000 in student loans. And so went back to school, went to Logan there in St. Louis, great school, and so became a chiropractor. That was kind of one of my dreams out of high school. I wanted to be a chiropractor way back when, something 25 years ago, something like that. And I got kind of talked out of it. I went to physical therapy. I was a PTA for, well, I guess I still am, but I practiced for about 16 years. And so then it was like, you know what? I got to a point in my career as a PTA that I wanted more. So decided, you know what? Let's pack the family up and move to St. Louis and became a chiropractor.
And you guys jumped in with all feet,
Yeah,
straight
we-
into it.
Yeah, just sold everything pretty much and moved to St. Louis. And 5 years later, we moved back down to Jackson just to be closer to family and
Yeah.
and everything. So that's in a nutshell. That's my academic journey, I guess.
Yeah. I really can't believe it's been that long. We actually just celebrated our 7-year anniversary for the business back on April 1st, and it's kind of just been surreal thinking about how much has happened in 7 years. And so I
Sure,
guess
yeah, you guys
all of
have-
this has happened in seven.
Yeah, you
less
guys
than
have
7
grown a
years.
ton, and it's awesome. The new gym is amazing down here. So
Thanks,
Well,
man.
thanks. Well, so you got through chiropractic school up there, and now you're back in Jackson. You've started your own practice here.
You're a private practice? Or
no,
you...
I'm an associate doctor at Hudson Chiropractic there in Cape.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm one of 4 docs there at the clinic. But I kind of do a little bit different from the docs. Of course, I have a big, strong rehab background from being a PTA.
Okay.
So I do a lot of movement screens. I work with more athletes than the other doctors do, but I take a little bit of different approach to the athletes that I see. So I have a little bit different hours. I work some Saturdays and stuff, so I get to see different people than they do. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of where we started at. So, being an associate doctor, it's a little different than like MDs. MDs, when they graduate, they get plugged right in. So as a chiropractor, you kind of got to carve out your own little niche. And from my background, I used to own a gym a long time ago. I'm still doing a lot of the martial arts, so I've kind of built my niche around lifters, fighters, jiu-jitsu guys. So it's a little bit different than some of the others.
Well, I follow you on Instagram, and I know you've been posting pretty regularly about different prehab type of things, and it all does seem to be geared towards athletes and people who compete a little bit. Is that a fair assumption?
It is, but one of the things that I don't know how much you guys do content marketing. That's kind of one of my big things now is I really tried to focus on some content marketing kind of stuff, getting stuff out that does help athletes, but also helps just the regular folks. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. You guys do TikTok kind of stuff?
I just got into it.
Yeah, Paige just got into it. I've downloaded it like 3 times.
I've made 3 so far, and it's taken me a total of like 5 days.
I keep deleting it off my phone.
It's my second go around of actually having the app, but it's a horrible, horrible rabbit hole to go down deep. Yeah. But
that's why I keep deleting it.
Yeah, the platform makes a nice little like 60-second content kind of thing. So all my videos that I post now are try to get under 60 seconds. So it's a quick, you don't have to have a lot of attention span to watch it. But I want content that's going to be really useful to folks. Yeah. Everything from, some nice quick exercises to some quick self-assessment kind of stuff, just something that you can use and be beneficial to you.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things that I've noticed, on other guys that have done, regular marketing kind of stuff, like our content kind of marketing kind of stuff. So that's been my focus here lately.
Yeah, because if people view your stuff, it's going or interact with it too, it's going to continually pop up. You're going to get more and more.
Sure, yeah.
On that endless loop.
Yeah, and who wants to see? I don't want to be the dancing chiropractor. You guys remember the dentist guy that was out? I don't know. It's been a year or two ago that he kind of went viral with his Drake dance thing there.
Yeah,
I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Granted,
what you need is the big ass hammer. Have you seen that guy on YouTube?
I know him. I follow him on YouTube and stuff. And he's actually at Jackson Winklejohn there in Arizona. I think Scottsdale. I'm wrong there.
What was that name?
Jackson Winklejohn. It's Jackson's MMA and Winklejohn. I don't remember what Winklejohn's first name is. But it's a very famous MMA school there in Arizona. And it's Dr. Bo Hightower. Yeah, that's who it is. So Dr. Bo gets the...
He's entertaining to watch, for sure.
So he gets the big hammer and chisels on people and, very large, lifters and MMA fighters and stuff. So I don't quite, go to that level, but yeah.
Interesting.
I guess that's what it takes to get millions of followers on social media. Yeah, you got to have some kind of a weird niche like that. And that's why the dancing dentist, was out in front of people's faces just because he was doing something crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Paige and I are kind of in the same boat, where we definitely recognize that in order to gain a big following on the internet, you got to just do dumb shit, to be blunt. And so, that's kind of the thing we have to navigate is, it's an easy trap to get sucked into. It's just, you can start doing dumb stuff and you can really make it seems for a little while like you're doing something well, but then, obviously that burns out. So you got to...
that might
get navigate.
That gets your foot in the door, but then you have to get some quality stuff behind that people want to follow, and that, or you just have to keep one upping yourself, and that's not easy to do if you've already started out kind of wacky.
Yeah. So as far as, I know you touched on TikTok versus Instagram. Do you like TikTok better? Is it just because it gives you that 60-second limit that forces you to be concise with what you're putting out, or what is it?
Well, the TikTok platform is I guess it's a little more general as far as even just for marketing kind of stuff. They don't geolocate or geotag TikTok as much as Instagram. Instagram, I can focus to people in our area, which works a little bit better. So it's the same videos on both. I liked the 60 seconds just because it made me focus a little bit more and be a little more concise and be a little more helpful in a quicker time.
Yeah.
But Instagram, it's just different because of the platform. Like I said, I can, put it to Jackson or Cape, and the local people see it a little bit more versus somebody in China or somewhere.
Yeah. Well, so I know I've seen you talk a little bit about movement assessments over the last little bit, and I know that was something that you said you wanted to talk about a little bit too. So what got you started with that whole thing, and which movement assessment thing are you working with?
Well, for me, I guess it always comes back to I want to figure out how to make me a better athlete, which my athletic journey has been such a weird, convoluted one. Let me give you the backstory on my problems and my feelings for years. Okay. So I was always a decent athlete in high school, never broke any records kind of things. I got into MMA after high school. Became an MMA coach, coached fighters for 15 years, and tried to compete and fight myself at the same time. But I always felt like I needed something more. And so, aches and pains that come along with being a fighter are always an issue. But I was always felt like I was missing a component. And until I started to learn more about what we call the hierarchy of movement, I never knew what I was missing. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know if you remember, I still can't get into a dang front squat to save my life, or get into a front rack. I mean, I can do front squats, but I can't get in that front rack position. So it's always been something mobility-wise that's been kind of one of my lacking things. And so I didn't understand how that all fit together until I started learning a little bit more about movement. Of course, and I had a background before, but so the movement hierarchy that I look at it is movement and mobility first versus performance versus skill. If I don't have the ability to move through a range of motion, my performance is always going to suffer. Mm-hmm. And so if my performance suffers, I can't build the skills I need to become a better athlete. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of the one thing that hit home first. It's like, oh crap. If I'm not building that ability to move, my performance will always suffer. I'm never going to be able to lift tons and tons of weight if I can't get into a proper front rack. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I can put 200 pounds on that bar and I can force myself into a front rack, but it's uncomfortable. So it's not the best position to be in. Mm-hmm. And so once I learned that, it's like, hey, these athletes need to be screened somehow to see where those deficits are. And that's what really kind of brought me back to the movement screen kind of stuff. And any screen has flaws, of course. The ones that I'm doing now are the FMS, the SFMA, which are functional movement screen, the selective functional movement assessment. Both of those they were created by a physical therapist. And so they were kind of in the rehab kind of world. They were kind of industry standard there for a while. They made some claims that you could really kind of predict injury with those two, which they've kind of proven those to be false. So you kind of take the good with the bad. Mm-hmm. It still has its place, though, because you take an athlete. I screened a couple athletes this week, a couple younger athletes, elementary school and high school, and the elementary school kids just are horrible. No flexibility, no mobility. They're just bad,
which is pitiful because they're in their youth still.
So
they shouldn't be losing those.
There's so much less play these days. Right, that's really what it's about. Our kids are not playing anymore.
Yeah, and they should not be losing that flexibility before they're even out of elementary.
No,
it's nuts.
Yeah, it's horrible. And so just addressing those issues with their parents, that the light bulbs kind of went on in their heads too, and they realized, hey, my kids, of course, everybody's parents thinks their kids are going to be the next, super great superstar. But, it kind of showed where the holes were in their game. And so being able to give them corrective exercises to help with these are just going to make them better athletes, as they get older. It's just going to make them better. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what my journey led me to as far as, being able to screen, athletes. It was just my selfishness of wanting to know what was going on with me they kind of led me down the rabbit hole to begin with.
Isn't that what gets us all started?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
That's really what this all boils back to.
We might have the most altruistic ideas, but eventually it just comes back. This helps me. And lets me help other people.
And then you realize it helps everybody else because
Yeah.
everybody kind of wants the same thing.
I think that's what gets us all started is, it's some pursuit of self.
Vanity.
Maybe
Little
it's
bit.
vanity, but it's some pursuit of self. And then once you dig into it, then a lot of people realize, wow, I could really help other people with this as well. And then that becomes something in a lot of cases.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what gets us all started.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I have a question about with those kids. I did a kids class a few years ago. And so you say whenever you give these kids exercises or flexibility and mobility drills to do, are they coming to you every time to do them with you? Or are you sending this stuff home or sending it to a coach? How are you implementing it?
Well, right now, we work with coaches and we work with parents. Just because they're going to see them every day or every other day or so. It's just not, of course, the cost benefit's not good for me. I mean, as a specialty, provider, I can't have these guys in there every time, just time-wise too, because it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
We usually generate a program somewhere between 5 to 8 to 10 exercises, depending on, how bad the stuff is. And that takes a little time. That's a good, 20, 30 minutes of a workout just getting through that stuff. Besides for the fact a lot of these kids, we're seeing and they're practicing, 4 or 5 times a week, 2 to 3 hours at a time. They're traveling, they're playing games and stuff. So it's really hard to get them in the clinic that much.
Right. Are you having trouble with getting their parents or even coaches to complete these exercise programs for them? Because I know just looking back, I'm like, man, if I had given something to any of these parents to do things at home on their own or to work with the kids, like I just don't see it happening.
That compliance is an issue when we're talking about rehab of any ages.
Yeah.
Kids, it depends on how dedicated the parents are to the kids.
Precisely.
That's a lot of it. So I've and this is embarrassing. I've worked with some kids that their parents are like right in the middle of everything. They're doing it. It's great. But then I've worked with some that, man, they've bugged me for weeks to get them in here to screen. But then when I'm working and doing the screens and talking, the parents over on their phone the whole time. And I'm like, yeah, this is not going to work out well for this kid.
Right.
So
sad.
compliance always comes down to how much the parents want to really push it. Because a
Right.
kid's a kid. I mean, if I give a kid, 2 exercises and I expect them to do them on their own, they're never going to.
Oh, no way.
No.
That's why I was curious, like, who's getting this information?
Yeah. So parents and coaches should be getting the information. Yeah, but it is what it is. So
Yeah.
I always think I would say 2 out of 10 kids, if they come in and do all that, they're going to follow through more than 2 or 3 weeks. Good thing with kids though, you put a kid on an exercise or a mobility program for a week, rescreen them again a couple weeks later, and they're already better.
Yeah.
You take me, I slept wrong, and it takes me 6 weeks just to get the crick out of my neck.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they're supple.
yeah, kids
I've been
are-
laughing about that
bounce back.
Facebook meme that's something like, when you're a kid, you jump out of a tree, you get back up, and you're fine, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
And then sleeping weird in your 40s, you're in a full body cast.
So I finally heard the name for this. It's a sleep injury.
A sleep
sleep
injury.
injury.
That's
So
it.
I have sleep injury. So that's my new favorite term. I don't know if it's an actual.
using that one.
Yeah,
That's
actual
good.
diagnosis. But I had a sleep injury last night. It sounds better than I slept wrong, got a crick in my neck. No, we woke up, we had a sleep injury. So.
I'm going
Yeah.
to use that, and I will cite you in proper MLA form every time I use
appreciate
it.
that, absolutely.
That's hilarious. So I have a question about you are a PTA.
Yes.
What made you choose the route of chiropractics instead of a doctorate in
Oh,
PT?
do you want to hear my whole sad story to it, or just you want me to cut it to the nutshell?
That's up to you. Hey, we got nothing but time.
So-
If it's entertaining, give us the long.
I don't know if it's entertaining, but it's a really kind of
Relatable,
rumbling,
give us a
roundabout
long-
story. So,
we got nothing but time.
yeah. So I was a PTA.
You're the time limit today.
Nice. So I was PTA forever, and it's kind of one of those things. As PTA, you hit your glass ceiling pretty fast, and so there's not a lot of room for advancement. So I got a degree in healthcare administration. Thought maybe I could work my way into administration, but never was able to. So my wife saw on Facebook an ad for a Caribbean medical school. So I was like, she's like, do you want to be a doctor? It's like, well, yeah, who don't want to be a doctor? And so I started looking into that, and I actually applied to a Caribbean medical school.
Did you say Caribbean?
Caribbean, yeah.
Okay.
There's like 64 schools in the Caribbean.
Wow.
64 medical schools. So they're
Bye.
absolutely. That's what she thought too. So they're classified as a foreign medical school, and used to, it's been probably 10, 15 years ago, you could take U.S. loans and use those. Of course, by the time I got around to it, you couldn't.
This sounds like a litigation
so-
nightmare.
So the closer the time got to us actually moving and going to the Caribbean, the way they wanted us to pay for school got more kind of hanky and hinky. So it got to the point where we were about a month out before we were supposed to leave, and they still hadn't settled how my student loans were going to be paid.
I remember all
boy.
this.
Yeah,
You
and-
guys were looking forward to.
Yeah,
I mean, I
we-
remember Mandy was looking forward to
we-
hanging out on the beach while you were getting
Yeah.
educated.
And so
You
it-
guys are gonna have to cast away yourselves in the Caribbean.
Yeah, and so they didn't have a good way, and it just got weirder and weirder. So I was like, you know what? I always wanted to be a chiropractor. Let me look at Logan. And so that's when we moved. And but ultimately, it just because I wanted to do more for my patients. As a PTA, you're kind of hamstrung on what the physical therapist and the doctor that referred you has you doing. So I knew that I could do more and I could be more benefit if I had some more autonomy and that I could control how I treated the patients. And so ultimately, that's one of the reasons I wanted to go back to school. And chiropractic was a good route for that. So it lets me do more because I have direct access. I don't have to get a referral for someone else. I can refer the imaging, the tests, the blood work, anything that I need to, and just have more control.
Yeah, cool.
So that's even a
Cool.
shorter version of the long rambling version.
I was about to say, it sounds like some stuff
Yeah.
was left out, but that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Sweet. So, how long you've been doing functional movement screens for how long now?
We started those actually back in chiropractic school. So
Yeah. Just in your practice, like you've actually been roping in people
I
and getting them going
came
from the
out
start.
right out of the gate doing them.
Cool.
So we have two screens. So the first is the functional movement screen, which is just a general screen for everyone. So if you, I don't know, you guys do a lot of algorithm stuff?
No.
No. I am super big on algorithms. So if I screen you, and let's talk about if I'm screening your shoulder, and so we screen the shoulder, and the left shoulder does everything, no problem. I screen the right shoulder, and I get you through a movement pattern, and you have pain. Well, the general screen, we throw that out the window. We'll complete the screen, but we know now that I need a more selective screen to screen why you're having pain in that shoulder. So that's when we moved to the SFMA, which is just a little bit different as far as it looks for what we call mobility versus stability. So if we move up from the ankles through the joints up, some joints are made for stability, some joints are made for mobility. And so we look at those kind of different pieces and we try to put that together, see what is generating pain. Do you have an issue with mobility that causes some kind of issue with pain? Or do you have an issue where you're not stable, that joint is not holding you in the right spot, whether it's a stability issue? So we kind of move through those patterns there. And like I said, the general one is just general athletes, everybody. That other one is just for pain. So that gives us two good options, clinically wise, to start figuring out what's causing people's issues.
How do you use the term algorithm in that sense?
Yeah, so I'm like, maybe we do this
Yeah,
if that's
well,
what you're talking about.
I guess the only way I know the term algorithm is kind of, I guess, in terms of computer searches.
Yeah.
So what do you mean when you use the term algorithm
So
in
if we
that
take an
sense?
algorithm, so if I put a body part at the top of the page, it's going to give me choices, yeses, no.
Oh, okay.
So and it just leads me to the next
Yeah.
choice. So it's kind
Gotcha.
of like a computer algorithm.
Gotcha.
Is what it is there. Yeah.
So essentially,
I've never heard it used in that way, so
Yeah.
I wanted to dig in and make sure I understood.
So there's
Yeah,
a
it makes
big
more
thing
sense now.
in diagnosing patients. You use diagnostic algorithms.
Okay.
So if you have this symptom or this thing, it leads you to the next.
So
Next
essentially,
choice. It's the
like
choose
a
your
flow
own
chart.
adventure. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a flow
Gotcha.
chart. Yeah, exactly what it is. Yeah.
I guess I don't. I think on the lower level than what you're talking about.
No, that's absolutely right. It's just a flow chart. Just leads you in the right direction.
Gotcha.
It simplifies having to critically think, I think, sometimes. So, but that's, if you look at diagnostic medicine, that's literally how every doctor is taught how to diagnose, is through that algorithmic flow chart kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep, precisely.
Well, I know Paige has been digging into a lot of this stuff over the last few months as well. So I'm kind of interested. Like, how does are you super familiar, Paige, with the FMS and the SMFA and how that compares or contrasts to what you've been digging into?
I've never looked into the SFMA, but functional movement screen, I did go through. I had experience with this during school for exercise science, and so, vaguely from what I remember, you've got an overhead squat, a heel elevated, like a sissy style squat, maybe? Is there?
There's 7 tests. Yeah, the overhead squat was the big one. There's an inline lunge. There is a straight leg raise. There is a hurdle step, which is the weirdest one of all of them. There's a couple clearing exercises, one for the, or not exercise, but test, one for the shoulder, one for the ankle. What am I missing? I'm missing one in there, I think. There's rotation stability, which is kind of like a, do you know what a bird dog is?
Yep.
So it's the bird dog.
We
on
do
one
lots
side.
of bird dogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not the cross pattern bird dog, but it's the same side one.
Okay.
So if you're able to stabilize one side,
Right on.
and then there's a kind of a set of push-ups that goes with it too.
Okay.
Depending on which, I don't like that they differentiate between male and female. So there's differentiate between hand position on male and female for the push-up, and then children. So that
Hand position?
yeah. So like males, you have the hands up by the brow. So females, you put the hands below the chin when you're like prone on the floor.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah, that is
Which means
strange.
face down.
Yeah.
Why would you put hands up by the brow on a push-up for the male? Are you just testing?
Yeah, it's just
testing the.
Yeah, it's just stability.
Okay.
It's testing if you can control your core when you come up.
Interesting.
So that was one of the things too when me and Michael were talking about movement screens that you guys do some here. So I was kind of interested to see what you guys
Yeah.
did.
So from a basic level, we basically just start with flexibility screen. So essentially, you'll have
That would be
somebody.
the first part of the algorithm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
using it.
Yes.
I'm using it. I got
So
it now.
we don't dive
So,
into.
do you mean
we
flow
don't-
chart? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, our flow chart. We don't dive into mobility until clearing all the basic flexibility in the start. So we'll test for shoulder flexion, just lying face up on the ground, and then bring that arm overhead. If it's stopped and cannot reach the floor at any point, then okay, we already know we've got an issue there.
Sure.
Standing shoulder abduction, trying to bring the biceps to the ears, make sure it's in line or covering the ear from a side view. We'll test hip flexion in 3 different slots, testing a prone, heel to butt. That one's essentially testing for flexibility in the quad and also core control. So if there's any pain in the low back whenever you do that movement, pretty obvious lacking core control. And there's a few others, ankles and wrists, and I'm leaving out there, just a standing fold forward. So that's our baseline. And so if there's any red lights on any of those movements, then we'll say, all right, you can't bend over and touch the ground. You probably shouldn't deadlift from the floor.
Sure.
Basic. Basic right there. If you can't take your hand overhead while you're laying down and it can't passively reach the ground or at least get within a centimeter or 2 of that, then we probably don't need to do any overhead movements, especially if there's a discrepancy from side to side. And then, things like toes to bar, running, what am I missing there? Especially things on like the GHD, which we don't really do a lot of face-up GHD work unless we're just going in parallel and coming back up. So things like that would especially be limited if you are lacking in that quad flexibility. So
Sure,
on the kip of a toe to bar or a kipping pull-up, if you don't have that flexibility in the quad, whenever you come forward or a lack of core control, you're constantly being pulled on your pelvis down forward, which can cause some pain in the back. And so it's just these are the basic steps right there. And then we kind of move into, do you have the mobility to hold this position? Can you hold the weight overhead after you've got that, and the stability. So we kind of mobility and stability together in some of those. It just uncovers a lot of deep-seated issues that get looked over, and I've just recently started working with a company called Active Life, and so I just try to perform this screen now, and I just started this since January, I think, and so getting my hands on as many people as possible and discovering a lot of things within a lot of clients. It's like, this would explain why this hurts.
Sure.
This would explain
You
why
start
that
seeing
hurts.
patterns.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, precisely. Like I just screened 3 people this morning, which is awesome. So thankfully, from them listening to the podcast, we're getting that.
That's awesome.
Getting that flow in here.
I think that is one of the things, as anybody that works with athletes, anything, that doing these things just makes people better.
Yeah.
And you talk about that was one of the things that the SFMA does is passive versus active motion too, and it was really cool. Let me throw another one of my nice certifications there. I'm a Factor certified, which is functional kinetic therapy and rehab, and one of the things they talk about is one of my instructors works with a lot of Olympic athletes, and these guys, they can do amazing things, but here's where the assessments kind of fall apart. You start picking apart their stuff, and they have a lot of these mobility, stability exercise or issues, but you get one of the best ones that they showed was a bobsledder, and he was the anchor guy, so he's the speed guy. This guy's phenomenal. Run his like 40 and 100 numbers are just off the charts, but you break him down, he has absolutely no core strength. He couldn't do I don't even remember what it was, something basic like just V-ups. It was just like horrible.
Really?
Yeah, you put like 20 of them on there and he just falls apart. But the guy, you put him out on the track and he's running like a 4.340 out there. It's just ridiculous. So that was one of the things that I had to kind of come to grips with, that you can throw all of these things at some of these athletes, but if they're just high level enough, they'll
find a way to compensate.
What's the implication there? Would you presume that person is compensating, or would you presume that if you went and tried to improve something, you'd make things worse or better? What's the assumption there?
This is what I've tried to come to grips with, and this is my hillbilly thinking of it. If this guy has these holes and we can fill these holes, he should be that much better of an athlete.
Right.
So, and that's how I think about it. But I've also been told, do not try to make corrections in an athlete in the middle of a season.
Yeah. I think that's super important.
So, like you take a high level golfer, this guy's swing is just this way, and if I go in and I do a lot of soft tissue work or whatever, and I improve or increase his range of motion, now his swing is different.
Right.
And so it might not be the same thing. So if I change somebody in the middle of the season, there could be some implications. So a lot of those things are off season. Even lifters have a little bit of an off season stuff if we're doing some periodization and we're cycling through some things. So there's times when I need to make changes versus times I don't want to make changes.
Yeah. Or times when you might say, hey, you probably shouldn't compete right now. You should probably take a step back and work on these things first.
There's the tough conversation that you try to have.
I just had this with a runner last week, high level runner, and he was trying to qualify for Boston, and he had a marathon.
Marathon running.
Yep. So he had a marathon this past weekend, and it was like Friday. I saw him, and he was having a hamstring issue, and it's like, man, you really shouldn't run. And trying to tell this guy, he was a collegiate runner, has run a ton of marathons, qualified for Boston, before, and trying to tell this guy, you need to take a few weeks off. It's not an easy conversation to have with some athletes.
Right. And like you said before, kind of correcting some of those things, even in somebody who doesn't have pain or is like, well, what's wrong with that? I don't need to be able to do this many V-ups for my sport or whatever. Hey, man, if you just need to recognize that if you could probably be this much better in your sport. And so that's one thing that a lot of people neglect to realize. And
is the big picture versus the right now.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so when we do this flexibility assessment, which is the top of our flow chart, the number baseline, you may have a lack of flexibility in a certain area, and you're like, well, it doesn't hurt, so what's wrong with it? It may not hurt right now, but it probably will in the future.
So that was the thinking originally behind the FMS and the SFMA stuff, and it's kind of like even bad posture. So I've had a kind of a run of stuff here lately that they say even bad posture won't cause pain. Well, if we take an athlete that, say, on that forward fold can't touch their toes, but they're consistently deadlifting heavy weights, they're really putting a lot of strain on the hamstrings and glutes and stuff. I mean, it's almost common sense that eventually something's got to give. Yeah. If they're that tight and they're having those issues, something's going to happen. And so,
and this could be as simple, in this particular case, this could be as simple as just shortening the range of motion for that athlete's deadlift, right? So they can still get effective strength training through that range of motion.
Right.
Is that right?
While they simultaneously work to gain that flexibility.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And so, yeah, there's absolutely things that you can do while you're doing those,
Right.
And make the corrections and stuff. So, yeah, I just think there needs to be, like you said, a baseline. If we have athletes that they're at this baseline, that's when we can start working on performance and skill, because we don't have to worry about things like, pulled muscles and stuff from not having the range of motion, to get to where they need to be to do the basic lifts and those kinds of things.
Right. And, I just made a TikTok on this recently.
Did you really?
She really did.
What's your TikTok so
Well,
I can follow you?
I think it's the same as my Instagram, just McCormx, so MCCORMX. But
Now I'm gonna have to go look at it.
so I
Hey,
don't.
while we're throwing this out there, what's your TikTok?
My
for
TikTok
our
is-
listeners.
My TikTok is Dr. Don Davis. My Instagram is the Fight Chiro.
The Fight Chiro.
Yep. So that's my Instagram. My Instagram is really kind
Chiro
of,
as in chiropractic,
Yes,
not
like-
as in the place in Egypt.
no, not Cairo, not Cairo, Illinois. The Fight Chiro, CHIRO.
I'll make sure to put those in the show notes for you
Yeah.
guys.
So Instagram's my main one, but yeah.
So, my most recent one was just kind of about how, you may have a flexibility issue or mobility even in a certain area, but it's not going to present in that exact spot. It can be somewhere else where the actual pain occurs. And so some people have trouble grasping that. If you like we'll go back to the quad thing. If you have a tight quad and you don't realize it, but you experience back pain a lot, or a tight rec fem, I should say specifically. If you have a tight rectus femoris, you don't realize it, you start experiencing back pain, you're going to try to stretch your back.
Sure, yeah.
You're like, I gotta stretch my back, need to strengthen my back, yada, yada, yada. So you just keep folding forward and keep putting that hip in flexion when it needs to go the other way.
Right, exactly.
So things like this is just, once people realize that, look at the body as a whole, everything's connected. My TikTok specifically was about having tight ankles can cause shoulder pain. If you like to overhead squat a lot and you have tight ankles,
You're talking
here you
to
go.
me right here.
Yeah.
Do you feel personally attacked right now, Doc?
Yeah.
Tight ankles.
If you have tight wrists or tight lats and you're trying to force yourself into a front rack position, not going to be beautiful. Not going to be
really?
pretty.
Did you screen me earlier?
Yeah, let's put Dawn through the screen.
Yeah, geez, that's yeah. People just don't understand that, the pebble and the shoe can cause, it's the princess and the pea syndrome.
Yes, yeah.
So that's
exactly.
a big issue, and it takes somebody like yourself and Michael that actually know those movements to understand that, hey, your ankle flexibility sucks. So you can't get in that overhead position. Yeah, those are the things I struggled with for a long time, and it took me learning some of these other things to understand how those things are connected.
Right.
Well, how have you applied this? I know you already talked about working with a couple of kids, but have you been able to apply this with any adults that you've worked with yet, as far as your movement screens and?
So really big on the jiu-jitsu guys. So
I was kind of trying to lead into jiu-jitsu because
that's kind of one of my personal passions. Like I said, I was an MMA instructor for years, and I've done jiu-jitsu since saw Hoist Gracie in '93. So tried to do that. So what's really cool is the gym there in Jackson, Gracie Yamato of SEMO, has some world champions there. And so we have guys that, are world-class athletes already. And so we can apply these things to help these guys. So that's one of the things that I've really been trying to do up there is screen as many people, try to fill in those gaps and those holes that those guys have. Because honestly, jiu-jitsu guys, MMA guys, they're not the best patients and guys that listen a lot. They do their own kind of thing, their own little different breed of athlete. So yeah, absolutely. That's one of my biggest things that I wanted to bring those things into the gym to help those guys. Because I'm going to still compete, but I don't think I'm ever going to be a black belt world champion. Of course, I'm almost 44, so I have other things to
still
think
a young
about.
Time's
pup,
running
Doc.
out.
You're still a young pup, Doc.
I am a Masters 3 competitor, so that means, I only have to compete against guys my own age. But, helping those guys, those, super young guys that have a really bright future, this kind of things really help. It's just that one piece of the puzzle. The guys might have great nutrition, they might have great work ethic, they might do, put in all the hours, but if they're missing like one of those first pieces off that hierarchy, that might really hold them back.
Yeah.
So
It's really kind of some low-hanging fruit that they can work
It
on.
absolutely
Exactly.
is.
And it's really sad how when people kind of dive into their athletic career, if they have one, they start from the top down instead of the bottom up. It's like you want to go in hard, you want to work out 5 days a week, you want
That's
to
a
learn
deep
everything.
one right there, Paige.
So, yeah,
Instead of
You're
just-
wise beyond your years. with
Instead
that
of
one.
just gaining that baseline, and
Yep.
we
And
probably all three did it.
absolutely, with the advent of YouTube, so now we
Yeah.
have YouTube jiu-jitsu guys and athletes and stuff
Yeah.
that go watch their favorite YouTuber and they try to come in and emulate that in the gym.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basics wins fights, basics wins races, basics wins competitions.
Say it again for the people in
Yes.
the back.
Basics.
My
God.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
Do you find with the people that you've worked with so far in jiu-jitsu, do you find that they typically have more issues with their flexibility or with maybe a strength imbalance?
it's usually one or the other. So jiu-jitsu is one of those sports that if you have super flexibility, you can do all kinds of wacky stuff. But so there's always that give and take. If you usually have great flexibility, you're giving up something else.
Yep.
So you're giving up the stability to hold positions in other positions. And then same thing, if you are a super tight, super stable guy of competitor, you're giving up flexibility.
Right.
So it's always one or the other.
Which runs me into my tangent of, if you're really flexible, stop stretching. If you're
really strong, you
gain
can
some
probably-
stability there. If
Yeah,
you're really tight, you need to start stretching.
Yeah,
and
if
then,
you can put both your palms on the floor, probably doing forward folds for a half an hour is probably not the best use of your time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, athletes are pretty, kind of general across the board. I mean, you can take any athlete from any sport, and there's usually certain types, just like that. There's the super flexible guys, there's the super tight guys, gals. Same thing with wrestling. I've coached wrestling, been a wrestler all my life. Kind of the same things. You get guys we call fishes. The fishes guys are they flop around a lot. They're tall, they're skinny. They do a lot of things with the short, stout guys like tree stumps that can't do. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I would imagine in jiu-jitsu that there is a lot of lack of. It would probably be a lack of flexibility, mostly in externally. Well, maybe not. I'm just thinking how much clamping, because I did jiu-jitsu for a little bit.
Sure.
Didn't do it very long. It's just too late for me. If you guys will have a class at like 4 p.m., that'd be great.
Paige goes to bed at 7 p.m.,
Yeah.
y'all.
They're having it at 7 p.m. every day, and I'm like, nah, I gotta go sleep. But it just seems like there's a lot of contracting
Yes,
in the middle.
so-
A lot of work should probably be done externally, rotating the hips and
I tell you,
things of
the
sort.
probably number one thing that there's a couple different types of players. So if we talk about jiu-jitsu players or judo players or any kind of grappling athlete, specifically with jiu-jitsu, we have a lot of issues with hip flexors because you're constantly, if you're playing guard on the bottom, for anybody who don't know, that's the one the person lays on the bottom, puts you between the legs, and they're trying to pull you close. So you're always flexing your hips trying to bring that guy's posture down to you. So we get a lot of the tendinopathies in the hips, or the tendinitis in the hip flexors.
Yeah,
So,
BJJ definitely seems like it's all pulling.
Yes.
So that's the people
So
that I've worked with. They're
there's-
super strong pullers,
there's the
but they're
difference.
very out of balance with the
So
push.
you have the guard players that are doing a lot of that pulling, holding you tight, but then you have the passing players that are constantly trying to have motion and get around you. So it's
I haven't
either-
worked with any of them yet.
It's either you got the literal smash or pass.
Yeah.
So you smash and try to just control people, give them absolutely no room to move, or you want every bit of movement that you can to pass their guard, to move them around. So yeah, it's one of the two types there. But yeah, definitely hip flexibility is probably the worst thing with those guys. Like I said, you get a lot of the tendinopathy and tendinitis kind of stuff in the hips, the psoas tendinopathy, which is a horrible pain. If you've ever had psoas issues, it really sucks. So, quad stretching, hip flexor stretching is probably the most important thing I see with those guys. Then, just like you said, if you have tight hip flexors, leads to back pain.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of those guys.
Because that's pulling your pelvis kind of out of position.
So yeah, and this is one of those things I've noticed here lately too. There's kind of a discussion of the pelvic tilts. Are you familiar with like anterior, posterior pelvic tilts, those kind of things?
Oh, yeah.
So the pelvis tilts, they're saying doesn't cause the issues like they used to, which I'm not sure that I buy 100% into that. Maybe if we're talking about a population of people that are not athletic, they're not doing things, but the anecdotal kind of stuff, and this is where we run into trouble: evidence-based versus the anecdotes.
Right.
Yeah.
That you see so many people that have these injuries, these things are going on. These athletes are having tight hip flexors. They're having back pain. It's kind of like you can't throw the baby out with the wash water. There's something there. There's got to be.
Yeah.
Right.
It just
And so-
hasn't been scientifically proven in a research paper yet, so
Yeah.
nobody wants to take it seriously.
And that's one of the big things in my profession that is there's the wacky chiros that say that I can adjust you and cure cancer and blah, blah, blah.
Oh my God.
I know. It's kind of sad and pathetic that that's still
Yeah.
around these days.
Yeah.
But then there's the guys that are so far evidence-based that they throw at everything that's been going on for,
Right.
in sports science for a long time.
So what would be the argument? Say you have anterior pelvic tilt, which just essentially means that your pelvis dumps forward. So if you're listening, you can imagine just poke your belly out real far, and that will dump your pelvis forward.
Right.
That's
So
the Instagram booty.
yes, the
Yes.
Instagram booty. So if you have anterior pelvic tilt, what is their assumption that's causing the back pain? If not-
Exactly. So this goes back to the whole posture question. So do the postures that we sit in and stand in, do those cause pain? No, if we're not moving.
Exactly.
But you put movement
Your
in
best
there.
posture is your next posture.
Yeah. So you put movement in there, that changes the game. So I can see where they say posture as if we're just talking about if I take a static picture of you
And stay here
this
all day
is
long.
Yeah,
never
this is
move.
your posture. It might not cause pain. But if I'm doing things in a certain posture, absolutely going to cause pain. It's just like the anterior pelvic tilt. We know now that if you have an anterior pelvic tilt and your hips or your pelvis is dumped forward, it's like pouring a water glass forward, that now your hamstrings are elongated. So your hamstrings aren't necessarily tight and don't need to be stretched so much. But we know that anterior pelvic tilt is causing an elongation of the hamstrings, which now causes a weakness in the lower lumbar.
Yeah.
So you end up with back pain because you have a weak low back. So it's not necessarily I need to strengthen my low back, but I need to look at this whole piece here.
Yeah.
So this is the
Figure out
typical
why.
lower cross syndrome. I don't know if you ever heard
Yeah.
of that. Oh yeah. So
Yeah, it's very interesting. And a lot of times when people have back pain, the first thing that they look for, that they ask us for, what's a good low back stretch?
Yeah.
My back hurts really bad. I just had a friend ask me this the other day, and she's like, I need a low back stretch page. My back hurts really bad. I was like, well, let's try a few tests and see if you
Exactly.
actually need that. And so took her heel to her butt, and she's like, ah! And I'm like, okay, there it is.
So, yeah,
you don't need to fold forward anymore. You need to get some length and some core stability.
So one of the things we saw just come out this past week was a large meta study that exercise is just as good at fixing back pain versus what we call passive modalities, which would be your heat, e-stim, passive things that someone can do to you, just like I do, of course, manipulation.
Right.
But exercise itself is just as effective at fixing back pain. That caveat is, like you just said, you have to know exactly what exercise is going to fix that back pain. Not just a low back stretch. You have to fix what the pain generator is, what is causing the low back pain.
Yeah. So this is one of the questions I want you to clear up for people. I think this is just, it's such a misunderstanding within the space of chiropractic. Exactly what you just said. Essentially, what would you say is the benefit of chiropractic care when someone is in pain?
Makes me money.
Like, here, I'll give you my view of it and tell me if you think this is correct. A chiropractor can adjust you. Say you have back pain. Okay. You're out of whack. Maybe you're like tilted up on one side or whatever, yada, yada. You give them that pop and they feel a little bit of immediate relief. It's like, It's like, okay, now I need to go correctly strengthen this range of motion that I'm lacking.
Wow, she's like speaking my language.
Okay.
I
absolutely love this because there's so many chiropractors out there that just, why don't they talk about this more? They're like, you need to, well, it's the money. The money talks. You need to come.
I think it comes back to what you guys were talking to about you giving the exercise prescription to the parents to do for the kids. Like,
right.
I think a lot of times you run into that as well. Like people will show up for the appointment for the pop and the crack, but then it's just like, okay, bye.
Yeah. If they don't give them anything, they know they're going to come back though.
Right. So there is, I guess you really have to kind of back up and go into what the mechanism that actually chiropractic does that helps people. So we look at, I guess the old theory of chiropractic was called the BOOP theory, the bone out of place. So bones don't actually go out of place as far as it's like, if I had a vertebrae that was actually out of place, I should be in the emergency room. So, but what does happen is if you look at the vertebrae above, the vertebrae below a disc, that comprises a segment. That segment has to rotate, has to bend, flex, all of those things. So what happens is that joint doesn't move right. Well, is the joint not moving right because of the joint being inflamed, yada, 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 or is it because those muscles around that joint are tight? So what we do as a chiropractor, if I give you an adjustment, I'm looking to change muscle tone. So I'm not changing muscle length or anything. I'm changing how that muscle is reacting at that one period in time. And so, just like you said, they go in, they get a crack, they feel great for a little while. Well, that joint's moving. Your body says, great, we get some nice endorphic rush through there. We get some other chemical reactions. Everything is great for a little while. But without an exercise prescription to actually either increase mobility or increase stability, we're just going to be back in the same spot we started in. And so that is why now, with being a rehab professional, that you really have to do the rehab with the manipulation. The old chiropractors were, we just crack you, we just do the adjustments. Well, after they've seen you 300 times and they've fleeced your bank account and they're driving their new Mercedes, of course they want to see you 300 times. So that's one of the things now too that we've really tried to change the profession to get rid of that old stereotype of once you start going to a chiropractor, you have to go forever. No, I want to see you. My goal is less than 6 visits. Yes. If I can see you less than 6 visits, I did my job. If we see you more than that, there's something else going on. There's a reason why. Either you're not being compliant with your exercises or there's something more malicious going on. It might be a chronic long-term problem or some other things. So.
Exactly.
But absolutely. So
I am so happy that we got to have this discussion because I feel like this is going to clarify so much for so many people. Like we need to shout this from the rooftops. And this is where I think the company that I work with, Active Life, this is their whole mantra, is bridging the gap between healthcare and the coach professional or whatever. This is exactly how coaches and doctors, clinicians should be working in unison You alleviate the pain, decide what kind of exercises they probably need to do, send them with that plan to a coach who can implement it, make sure they follow through, do these things consistently. It's such a beautiful full circle picture when it can happen together.
Right. And
This has been my vision since we got into this, is finding some kind of a way to find collaboration between healthcare.
It starts with conversations like this. Absolutely. Because I don't have the time to get people in my clinic, daily to do the things they need to do, besides for what I can give them to do.
Right.
And that's exactly where you guys come in. If you can find doctors that you can collaborate with, that's amazing. That's how it works. That's the way it should work.
Yeah.
It's the direction we're working in.
Yeah. So, if you got any people in the Sykeston area, send them our way.
Absolutely. I actually see a lot of folks from up Sykeston, and of course I always shout your guys' praises to the rooftops. Anytime I see anybody working, I was like, I used to work at Boot Hill, that's where you guys need to go. I was actually just talking to a guy, he was a power lifter. We were talking about working out the other day, and that's, it's like, hey, this is my preferred gym down there, because he didn't know some of the gyms down here. He was talking about some of the other places and stuff. It was like, no, this is where you need to go.
So thanks for the shout.
So, I'm always shouting your guys' praises.
man.
You said he's a power lifter?
Yep.
I'm going to have to send you with one of our flyers for the powerlifting meet.
Oh, nice,
We're
yeah.
hosting
Yeah.
in July.
Sweet.
I'll send you with a few of them, and if there's any
Yeah,
place you want to
absolutely.
hang them up there. I haven't been able to make it into Simply Fitness yet to hang a flyer there, but
Yeah, that's actually down the street from my house. Yeah.
Is
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
I've gone by there twice, and they've been closed both times. And I know that one of the trainers that works there, and I keep missing him. So trying to find a way to get one in there as well.
Sure, but absolutely. So collaboration is an amazing thing. That's the way healthcare needs to go. We need to get this more proactive, versus passive view.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one you can shout from the rooftops forever. So, but that's just the state of healthcare.
Yeah.
I don't want to say people are lazy, but people are lazy.
It's just the whole.
You ain't, but
It's
you
the
are.
whole expectation and the whole industry in our society is.
Yes.
It's just fix it once it's broken. But
Yeah, exactly.
You can save so much money by staying ahead of these things.
Exactly.
It's much easier to put it off until something comes up.
Right.
Well, it is. It's out of sight, out of mind until
Yeah.
it affects you. Then now you need this collaboration all of a sudden
Yeah,
that
when
you
you
could
say,
have
"Oh,
prevented
shit."
just by doing a little bit of work yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And this I forgot where I was going with that. I had a train of thought, and then I just totally
So
lost
it just
it.
crashed right on the
Yeah,
rails
it
there.
just crashed. But it's just such a beautiful thing. And so this is what I was going to say. This is precisely why I decided to become a coach. And I originally was planning to go to school for occupational therapy, and I was like, these people don't give a shit about their rehab process.
They're just there to
They're just
fill
they're
an
just here going
insurance
through the
requirement.
motions. Yeah, and I would work, go into a clinic somewhere, just hear stories about of exercises that they're having done in their clinic. There are fantastic, absolutely wonderful PTs and OTs out there. We have several of them that work out in our gym. They're awesome. But then you hear some horror stories of stuff that people are being told to do in their recovery process, and then you realize that, hey, that wasn't necessarily the right thing for you. And I'm just like, I want to be on the front end of this, not on the back end. And it's kind of come full circle, because Michael was kind of explaining this yesterday to somebody that I started on that side of it. Then I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So then I became a coach, just to kind of help people move better, look better naked, yada yada. And then I've gone back
We don't want to do that, yeah.
And now I've gone back to, well, I want to keep doing that as a coach, but I also want to make sure that people are doing it correctly. And I don't want to say that I'm not, that's out of my scope. I don't treat conditions or anything like that, but I can identify, that's what a coach should be able to do, is identify those deficiencies.
And that's where that referral program, or not program, but referral process comes in. Hey, this is what you do. Maybe you need to go see this person for this.
Right.
Or this person for this. See this chiro, see this PT.
Right.
Because you've identified that, hey, there's something going on here. This is causing you an issue. This is where you need to go. Same on my side. Hey, this is where you need to go because this is what you need to do.
Right.
So,
and these can keep those minor cases that really shouldn't have to go to you for, where you can spend more focus on people that have true issues that you really, really need to help with. Like if somebody has back problems because their hip flexors are tight, they should never have to even get to you in the first place. That should be something that is identified by somebody that's working with them in their exercise program.
Yeah, and that comes back. You talk about in the clinics, people doing wacky stuff. It's just an old archaic system that, it's really hard to make, move that needle and make that change. It's just like, giving, tons of hamstring work for somebody that has low back pain when they don't need hamstring work. They need some strengthening, some core work, and some other stuff. It's just, that's one of the problems with healthcare in general. You talk about filling that need, filling the insurance kind of the portion of that deal. Insurance really hamstrings the ability to do some of the things you need to do at times. And that really sucks for the patient or the athlete or whatever, because they can't get the things they need done. So to be able to survive and make money, you have to do a lot of times what the insurance wants, and it ends up being old archaic things that is not the best practice for that person.
And how many times too, it seems like it can be a really difficult conversation with the client themselves who has an issue with their back. They're feeling pain in their back and they think that's where it's coming from, and it can be really hard to get through to them that it's not actually your back. Sometimes it's the hang up at that point as well. And that's where I think having more of these conversations that the general public can listen to and understand the processes behind these, I think can be really valuable. And that's one of the reasons why I think this podcast platform can be so useful, because it's sometimes the biggest issue can just be changing the actual patient's perspective on it.
And of course that's what doctor means, is educator, so a teacher. And so that's as soon as they come through the door, I'm trying to educate them, and teach them. So that's one of my biggest things, is you make that connection with people by being able to educate them, not condescend them or anything, just educate them. And just like I said, the passive stuff helps, but being able to educate and teach people, there's this whole thing called the biopsychosocial model. Have you guys ever heard of that?
I'm not familiar with that.
So it's just like you said, we're a sum total of everything. We're not just our mechanical meat flesh body. We are our thoughts, emotions, everything. So it's
experiences.
It's this whole process. And so, if I have somebody that's just 100% against being educated and they just want someone to touch them and do this and fix them, those people aren't going to get it, as well, as fast as someone who is 100%, hey, I need to do this. These are the things I need to do. You teach me what I need to do to get better, because I want to be better.
And that's the dream client. Somebody that will actually take their own investment in their healing process.
And things like that are developed when you're a child by your environment. Because when you're a child and you haven't formed your own thoughts already, these are the things that your parents, your teachers, your peers and stuff need to help reiterate. So this kind of goes back to why you can't just give a kid a program, and why if the parents aren't able or aren't willing to follow through with it, then there's going to be no success.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's the value of this conversation, because if people can hear this type of thing before there's a problem, then when something does come up, they'll be like, I've heard that before, and then you're not having to go through this whole process during a visit when you've met them for the first time.
Right. The more educated that people get, the more investment they take in themselves, they're happier, they're healthier, all around. Whether it's fitness, whether it's pain relief, all these things. A happy, educated patient is always the best.
And your body is your own. Take care of it. Like you need to put thought and effort into your movement and into your daily activities.
I am a bone mech with a meat flesh armor that I drive around every day.
Right.
So
how can you just totally neglect that? That's when you die of a heart attack at 50 or 60 years old.
And that scares me. Like I said, I'm a father of 2. I've got a little bit of high blood pressure, and I always thought I was in decent health, but I know I can make improvements in my nutrition and my fitness and everything, but it takes work.
Right.
It takes time, and that time investment is one of those things that's so hard to get back. It's just it's tough.
Yeah.
And that scares me, like I said, because of being a father of two. I don't want to be that guy that's 45 and dies of a heart attack. And I don't understand why people don't want to improve themselves, so that's not an issue.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. This is the conversation I have a lot.
These
but
are
I guess
things
it
you
is
want
just-
to bludgeon over the head with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly plenty of people out there that think about it like we do, and I guess they're the ones that get involved in their own health. But then you do see so many people that just don't even give it a second thought until something goes wrong when they're way too young.
Right.
Well, sure, because we're reactive versus proactive.
Yes.
And that's really all it is. And that's healthcare in general, fitness in general. People don't start exercising until they have their first heart attack. How many people do you see those?
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yes. Or scare with some other health condition.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm the most guilty. I mean, that's why I'm here, because I had that cancer scare when I was in my 20s. And I've said that 100,000 times at this point, that was the best thing that could have happened to me at that point in my life, because I was young enough to where I felt like I was fully in control of getting myself back on the rails. But it was a health scare. It was the exact same thing. I just got it young.
Yep.
This is a super valuable conversation, and I just really, really hope millions of people listen to our podcast.
Can this one be the most listened to
I
that we've had
know.
so far?
Ever.
I don't know if I'm the most exciting guest yet.
But it
Honestly, this has been one of my
honestly,
favorite conversations we've had. I'm really glad that
because
you
this
came down
is
for this
so
one.
relatable. Everybody's experienced pain in their life. Everybody. They're going to be able to relate this to whatever's going on currently. They're probably going to be like, oh, okay, that's what I need to do. My back hurts really, really bad. I'll go see Donnie, and the Don. And I'll go see the Don, and he's gonna kind of figure out maybe what I need to do, and then I'll go see Michael and Paige, and we'll put that into practice and make sure that I stick with it. Or maybe somebody is just like, well, I want to start working out. Okay, come see us. We'll put you through a movement screen and make sure you're moving safely and don't have to end up in the Don's office.
Exactly. And so one of the things, too, that I always tell patients, be proactive, find out about your healthcare providers. Are you going someone that looks healthy? I mean, so that's a big thing. I mean, I don't want to take advice from somebody that, they look like they've had their 8th cheeseburger today, and, they don't know what they're talking about. So it's kind of like one of those things, you got to walk the walk kind of thing. Do a little bit of research. I know for us, for being an evidence-based chiropractor, there's a couple websites out there that kind of list the people that do kind of the same thing I do. There's a couple certifications, Factor being one of them. The Forward Thinking Chiropractic Alliance is another one. These are just evidence-based networks, so you don't get the quack, folks out there. I know it's hard to try to find those kind of people, but when you start building relationships like with you guys and those kind of things, you guys can lead people in the right direction kind of deal. So find good people. If you have any kind of, hesitancy about it, find somebody else. Right. People are so afraid to fire their doctors because there's this weird cultural authority that healthcare professionals have. But, I mean, if you're not getting the right stuff from them and they're not telling you the right things, if they're not telling you to have better nutrition, get more exercise, and they're not leading you to a path of that, they're not doing the best service for you.
Right.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with that more. That's a really good statement, and that's come up several times on this podcast before as well.
Sure.
And if they're trying to feed you an 800 calorie a day diet in liquid format,
along with your other 22 medications that they're
run.
Yeah.
Well, and this is just another bridge that I'd really like to gap, did I say that backwards? Anyway, this is
like to bridge.
I was following you. That's all right.
This is just another one that I really want to bridge in the coming years. Is I think it's the same old archaic understanding that a lot of doctors have about diet and weight loss, and some of the recommendations they give are just cringy. And
the problem is they don't have an understanding. Those aren't things that are, unless you're like a registered dietitian or you go to a very niche.
But they're
medical
giving
school.
they're giving those recommendations
Right.
out.
They're not taught, that information in school. I wasn't taught really that information in school. It's things I have had to go outside of my practice and outside of my education to learn.
Right.
What we're talking about, an MD or DO that, they spent so much time, learning these things, they just can't learn everything well enough to be the authority that people think they are.
Of course, yeah.
So that's the same thing. I don't want to give nutrition advice. I mean, I have some ideas, but I'm going to send them to the professionals that know, what they're talking about.
Right. You can give generally good advice on nutrition, but if somebody wants you checking in on them weekly or bi-weekly to make sure they're doing the right things, like, hey, why don't you work with somebody that only does this?
Right. And the problem is we have the internet with 8 billion, voices out there that aren't, most of the time the best voices to listen to. And that's the problem we have. We have to compete against that. We have to compete against YouTube. We have to compete against the V-Shred guy.
Right.
All of those people.
Speaking of a lot of crappy information out there on the internet, do you remember the name of that website where you can find an evidence-based practitioner?
It's the Forward Thinking Chiropractic Alliance.
Sweet.
That has a list of providers that consider themselves evidence-based. There's other, of course, kind of techniques. Like I said, I'm a Factor certified doctor, which is functional kinetic therapy and rehab. So you can go to their website and find a doctor. Of course, the FMS, the website also has good doctors like that.
Yeah.
So anybody that's looking at these kinds of things, they're usually going to be better than those typical docs that, are just kind of set in their old ways and doing the old things. If they're not, I've heard this statement a bunch here. If your chiropractor doesn't almost look exactly like your physical therapist, they're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. So we just do a little bit different stuff than the physical therapists, but most of the things should be about the same. Yeah. We concentrate a little bit more on manipulation and adjustments than a physical therapist does, but physical therapists can do those too.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Man, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Doc.
Yeah, it's been great.
I appreciate it. I'm always willing to come back anytime. This is, this isn't the place where we started at. You guys are always home, so.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, Dr. Donnie Davis.
Yep.
Your what's the name of your up in Jackson?
I'm at Hudson Chiropractic in Cape. It's actually in Cape.
Oh, it's in Cape. Okay,
Yep.
I've been saying that wrong this whole time.
I'm
sorry.
Cape Jackson. It's a kind of a package deal. So.
Yeah.
That is with a D, right?
Yes.
Hudson.
Yep. But the biggest thing, if you guys want to find my stuff, is just go to my Instagram at the Fight Chiro. That has all my details and stuff. That's where you're going to get my good content information and stuff from.
Sweet.
So
We'll link all that in the show notes.
And if somebody wanted to contact you to come to your chiropractic place,
sure.
Do you want to give out a phone number or a website?
Sure.
Or anything?
I mean, yeah, you can always just contact me, Dr. Don Davis at it's 573-335-7349 at Hudson Chiropractic. But like I said, I always refer people to my Instagram. That way they can follow it and follow the content and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So
perfect.
Right on.
Sounds like a plan, man. Let's wrap it up there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And
we've definitely got to do this one again in the future.
Sure, absolutely.
We'll have to find some good topic to dig into for the next one.
There's always a ton of stuff that we can yabber about. For
All right, let's wrap it up there. We'll see you in the next one. Bye!